There is no escape. There is something none of us will be able to escape. And by that I mean, we construct our identity, right? We construct for ourselves who we think we are. And we tell ourselves day after day after day who we think we are. And some people actually work very actively on creating a self-image to themselves and to the outer world that has these attributes or these traits, right? So in this, we can do this, and it's actually even built into the incarnational process here, which means when we incarnate, number one, all of us are dependent on other human beings, otherwise we cannot survive here. So it's built in to this incarnation that we have to interact with other people, and that humans who have been here before, in order to have offspring and to keep their what you call that, not their race, but their species, to keep that going and to keep that alive, they have to interact with their offspring. It's not like some form of bacteria or other animal that can just live on their own straight away. So three-dimensional or third-dimensional beings, they have to interact with each other. So we're helpless when we get born. And through this interaction with the humans and with our environment, we get programmed and we get a certain sense of ourselves. First, as a child, we still are very much in contact and in connection, usually, with what is deeper within us, who we really are. And then as time goes on, the programming and the conditioning and the socialization takes place, and we start to form a self-identity, an ego. So we start to have beliefs about ourselves and perceptions about ourselves and feelings about ourselves and thoughts about ourselves. And the environment co-creates that with us. So the feedback we get from the environment, or the programming or the messages, that is something oftentimes in childhood, because we're so open like sponges, we take all that in, and that influences how we perceive ourselves. If we were left alone, or if we were all told you're a perfectly divine being, just go explore your divinity, that might be different, but that's not how things work here. So we're all programmed and conditioned in certain ways, and we then develop this self-identity and this self-perception, an image of ourselves. And in adulthood, oftentimes, especially nowadays, people actively create a self-image for themselves, like how they want to perceive themselves, and they work on these traits. And I want to be a successful person and a punctual person, and this, that, and the other. And then also for the outside world, like how they want to perceive themselves and how they want others to perceive them. But what we can never escape is what's underneath that, and underneath that. What I mean by this is, usually we are faced with a tragedy, some existential crisis, some really, really borderline experience, we will be faced with what's truly inside of us. And our ego will not be able, generally, to hold us in the space of illusion, of the ego mechanisms, when we're really faced with a crisis or a tragedy or a life and death situation. And if we're lucky, we do not need any of those crises in order to awaken to ourselves or to start to explore who we really are and uncover that again, like decode and unpeel the layers of the onion. If we're lucky, we don't need the tragedies and the difficulties and the pains or losses, whatever we suffer, that would bring us there. we can do this naturally in the flow of life. Oftentimes, for many, many people, it is through those existential moments in life that they're faced with themselves and they have to explore again, who am I? What's really inside of me? I thought I was so cool and so brave and so courageous and so above things. And then faced with a tragedy or some kind of life or death situation, something really extreme, all that was non-existent. And all I was a frightened little being, not knowing what to do, where to turn, totally crumbling. And that's what we will be faced with. We cannot escape what's really there, our true self. Now, by you experiencing yourself as not this brave person, that's just one example, that you created yourself to be, but as a very fearful person when faced with an existential crisis, let's say, or situation, that's still not the real you. That's just what's really there, underlying the construction, the construct of your better version that you constructed of yourself. So then you find, there are emotions, and oftentimes it's negative emotions that were hidden with the construction of this ego, of this personality, this persona, to ourselves and to others. And then you see what's really underneath it in terms of emotions. So that's really then what we get to explore, or what we get to heal, and what we get to hold, and what we get to feel as that is really part of us. But it's also just conditioning. It's also just part of learning from 3D experiences and interpreting them, and then having beliefs about them. Now, the next step then is on the path to truly exploring and finding out who you really are, is going beyond that also. And we can do this in meditation. We can do this in lots of different ways. And sometimes it means it happens at the end of a life, but we will not escape that moment when we will recognize and see again who we truly are, what's truly underneath our self-image, self-created image, right? So whether it's at the end of our life when we transition, or whether it's before. Now, if it is before, that's a treasure. For many people, it can also be quite daunting when they notice that when faced with difficulty, when everything goes well, they feel great within themselves and within their lives. But when things don't go well, when things seem to go completely wrong, horrible, terrible, they cannot hold it together, or they are not the person they thought they were. And it's true, they're not that person they thought they were. They're the person they thought. Their thoughts created that they were. And so we cannot be our thoughts, because they are also created. They come and go. And we can choose what we think we want to be. So therefore, everything is constructed. But in extreme situations, we're confronted with everything falling away and then coming into contact with the essence of that. And so we will have to face that, or we are facing it even in day-to-day situations. A lot of us who have learned that life brings us little moments in a day where we get to explore what's really deep within us, where we see that we don't have to make up this character or this false persona in order to look good before ourselves, our own eyes, or for other people. That we actually enjoy a lot more being our true selves, and whether that is someone who is brave, or someone who is big-hearted, or somebody who is judgmental or non-judgmental, kind or not, that actually doesn't matter. What matters is if we are courageous enough to move inward and to face ourselves again and to become transparent to ourselves, we can then explore and create more of the traits that we actually want to truly embody. So if we want to be kind, it's not good enough to have a persona that's kind. and to tell ourselves we are so kind because I gave this person money and I did this for that person and I'm here for my family, and that's not enough. The true kindness is something that resides in our hearts, and it's not going to go anywhere, even when difficult situations arise, even when somebody comes into your proximity and really annoys you or treats you unfairly. Because in those situations, you will see how much kindness is there in me. It's so easy if everybody is nice to us. So we cannot escape what is really within us. Life will bring us situations where we will be faced with ourselves, with facing ourselves. That challenge will come. And if we don't take up that challenge or learn the lessons, then that's fine too. But we will not be able to escape our true selves. The latest will be at the transition stage from this life into the next stage, when there will be nothing left of the construction of the ego, when all we will bring is our true self, is the emotional body that is really there, not the one that we constructed, the energetic body that is really there. And so what we can do now, and that's the invitation with this video, I invite everybody, most of you are already on the journey, I invite all of us to deliberately face ourselves now and every day and all the time. Because like it says in the Law of One, there are 3 aspects that are the most important on the path to enlightenment. Three elements. And Ra in the Law of One calls them the disciplines of the personality. So the first one is know yourself. And that doesn't mean know your ego construction and who you think you are. Get to know yourself. Explore yourself. The second one is accept yourself. Once you know what's really within you, once you know who you are, then accept yourself in the entirety, which means you also accept every little ego construction that is there. You don't condemn anything, you don't bar anything from your field. It's all well, it's all allowed to be there. You accept everything as part of you, because you are everything. And the third discipline of the personality is then you become the creator. But these are the 3 steps that we go through. Know yourself, accept yourself, become the creator. And now, some people would argue, I can become the creator of my life. I have manifested so many things, and most of them might be from the ego, because our willpower is actually quite strong, and the will of the ego can be quite strong, and we can manifest things. We can put things into place. We can create things from the ego with willpower. But what's debatable is whether this is serving then to the soul, to your soul's path, or whether this will actually make you happy. Most things people do create from an ego state will leave them unsatisfied, because the ego is never satisfied. The ego will always look for the next thing. Because that's what ego is. Ego is a construct of lack. Ego always tells you, you need to become more, you need to improve yourself, you need to improve your wealth, you need to improve this state, that aspect. Come on, there's stuff to do. And let's chase after this, and then you will be happy. And let's go for that, and then you will be happy. So you might do things or experience things or acquire things only to find out then that the emptiness you felt before, you may have achieved something now that you really thought you wanted, but it does not leave you without desire. The next desire, the next uncomfortable desire deriving from a feeling of lack will already begin to flourish within you, to grow within you, if it's from the ego. And that's often as well, just to add this at the end, sometimes people ask me, how do I know if I want really something, like my soul wants it, my heart wants it, or if it's the ego? You will know by whether this is from a feeling of lack that you want this, And you can explore this. You can create something and see whether the fulfillment of it will leave you content, happy, satisfied, or whether it's like, okay, now I need the next thing. That's one indication of whether it's from the ego or from your heart. Now, your heart doesn't really need anything because it knows all the fulfillment is already there. Everything is already inside because everything is you. So there is no lack or separation from anything. But the ego will feel separated. And so that is one indication of how to know whether a desire is a heart's desire or an ego desire. And sometimes both of them can be intertwined. And then what I suggest people do is, and that is also the practice that I use, if I felt I wanted something really, really badly, like really, oh, that's my heart's desire, I want this, and I feel this is in alignment, and so I want to manifest this, then what I always add in, okay, I would like to create this. I'm going to open myself up energetically. I'm going to become a vibrational match for what I want. So I don't live in lack. I live as if this was already mine. It was already my experience. It was already here. But I always add to the universe or the divine one aspect. And that is, if this is in alignment with my purpose, in alignment with my soul, if this is for my highest good and the highest good of all, then I say wholehearted yes to this. If this is not the case, if this is not the best version, not the best whatever house to get, not the best relationship, not the best work, not the best, not whatever it is, if that's not the case, if it's not the highest version of what is good for me right now and for my highest good, I don't want it. No matter how much my ego might say, but when you have this, then you will be so fulfilled and so happy, and this is exactly what you've wanted for so long. I declare to the universe, to the divine, I don't want it then, if it's not for my highest good. I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to not experience this in this form right now, even though I think this is exactly what I want. Because I know something more fitting, something more precious, something better is waiting for me. And then I am willing to wait too. And it's not a painful waiting. It's like, it's a cooperation with the universe. It's a cooperation with life. I don't want to make life give me anything. I want this to be a flow. I want life actually to be the creator through me. Because as soon as we think we create, we're in the ego, because the ego is separate. What is truly always the case is life is creating through us, because that's what we are. And so in seeing us separate, ourselves separate and creating from the ego, that's oftentimes when we create things that don't make us happy and that leave us in lack. But we will never be able to escape our true selves. And that is actually a good thing, because that way we always come back to our true selves. It could be painful at first to notice certain things that we covered up within ourselves because we didn't want to face them, but only through that process can we then move beyond it, beyond those experiences, into our true state of being, which is peace, which is eternity, which is love, which is bliss and joy. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to leave you with blessings, light and love for today, and we'll talk again next time if you want to.